Welcome back, guys. Before I continue any further, actually, I want to make sure that I apologize to each and every one of you that viewed my first take on this video. Um, I did not know that I had some terrible editing after I uploaded to YouTube and did not realize it. And so I deleted that video, and this is my second take, and I hope to get that you guys are able to appreciate that. Again, if I do make mistakes, I apologize. I'm not very good at video editing skills, and my speech pattern is not exactly the best either. So, anyways, if I do make mistakes, please let me know in the comments. I'll try and fix the video as fast as possible. If you can let me know as soon as possible, it's easier for me to do it that way rather than like eight or nine videos in. So please do let me know. I am very active on my YouTube profile. I do check my comments and I try to make sure that I help everybody as much as I can. So again, if you do comment, thank you. If you don't, please let me know. So please try to reach out to me when I make mistakes. Thank you. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be a series of videos for grains. So the first bit is dynamic custom grains. When I say dynamic, I mean they're pseudo-dynamic because they have to be synced every time the value of a grain updates. If you don't know what a grain is, they're like an attributes of a server. So, for example, think of a server that we have running on AWS right now that's running Amazon Linux. For example, the OS flavor is Amazon, and the version is whatever version it is, 2016 point whatever 9 it was, I forget. Anyway, so that's basically a grain. It's an attribute of the server. It's something about the server on the server. So when you call it from Salt, you can look at the attributes and it will return that. And you can also query by the attributes. For example, if I have 30 Amazon instances and 30 Ubuntu instances, and I just want to target the Amazon ones to install HTTPD and Ubuntu to install Apache 2, I can do that. They're used for querying, they're used for searching, and so on. So we can go ahead and what we're going to do is that we're going to create a custom grain. We want to use something that can pull in data and then put that in a grain rather than creating a static grain. A static grain is basically saying, go into the server and set this grain to this value. This ID must be this value. Where a custom grain, where you can say, pull this data from wherever, using Python, pull this data from wherever, and then set it to this key. This key can be anything. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create three keys, or say one key with three values, rather. We're going to set the provider, we're going to set a static grain with the provider of Amazon. We're going to get the instance ID from the instance and the instance type from the instance, and set them as grains from within the instance this way. And the second part is that we're going to be doing the same thing for the kitchen and vagrant VM. So where we're not running we're not running EC2, it will list kitchen/vagrant instead of Amazon EC2 and instance ID and instance type. Okay? So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of examples between what a custom grain is and how it's set in the documentation. So this is a custom grain that's in the documentation. I'll provide this link in the description below. So this custom grain basically just states, name your function, initialize the grain's values, set a key, and then create the value in the custom grains and return it. So this custom grain has to belong in the underscore grains folder within the environment. So for example, the base underscore or base/underscore grains. So we'll create one there and we'll have something similar to this. But instead, we're going to pull data from the server and then set it as a grain. Once we go ahead and set the value as we need it, we're going to need to sync grains or sync all, whichever you prefer. And of course, I think that's it actually. We don't need to do anything else. So once we sync the grains, we should be good to go. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started with the actual code that we're going to write. Okay, so this is my environment that you guys already know. Oh, by the way, before I continue any further, if you don't have Python experience, that's fine. You don't have to actually know much about Python. However, it definitely helps. I'll provide this Learn Python the Hard Way. It's a great source to learn Python. You really need to know, to set grains properly, you really need to know about dictionaries and lists. If you can get those two under your belt, you're fine. Dictionaries, lists, if I had to add a third one, I would say functions. But those three, and you're good to go in creating grains. You don't need to know much further. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. So let's create our folder, which is _grains in the base environment. And within the folder, we'll have a new file. We'll call it ec2 check.py or something. But what we need to do is that we need to be able to pull the instance ID from the EC2 instances. So to do that, I like to use the curl method. If you go into the EC2 instances, and let me go in here, for example. If you curl 169.254.169.254 /latest/metadata/instance ID. Oops, I spelled instance wrong again. It actually returns the instance ID of this instance, which is exactly what we're going to use to pull this data and set it as a grain. So rather than using a Linux curl, we're going to be using a Python library called urllib2. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So import, let me set my syntax. So Python, so import urllib2, and then from there on, let's do def ec2 check. Now, this is already a library that's already available in Python, so I don't need to explain too much of that. All it does is that it's able to open pages, get response codes, and so on. This here is a declaration of a function. This is the function that we'll be using to pull all of our data for the EC2 data that we'll be pulling. Excuse me, the instance ID, the instance type, and the provider of Amazon. So within this, let's go ahead and instantiate the grains dictionary. So grains is equal to an empty dictionary, or you can say grains equal true, up to you. I like to use empty dictionaries instead. So let me comment this out as well. Instantiate grains dictionary. All right, so then let's go ahead and set the first key. Now, the the thing I want to make sure is that all of the EC2 or Amazon stuff belongs in their own category. If you look at the grains currently, is that they're all sort of in some alphabetical order, which is fine, but I want it more like this, where it says local info and it's all about local info. So I want to have something about like cloud info and have all the cloud info there, rather than sort of just be in a normal alphabetical order. So I'm going to use what I just said, cloud info. So let's go ahead and instantiate cloud info. So instantiate grains key cloud info. So grains cloud info. And I want to set that to an empty list. Is equal to a empty list. Okay, so now that I've got my list in there, what we're going to do now is that we're going to go ahead and open the URL lib to curl the base of that data, and then from there on get the two different the two different values. So what I mean by the base of the data is that when I did the previous curl, I went all the way to the instance ID. But if I just stay to the metadata, I can pull instance ID and instance type. So I'm just going to take this part of the URL and make that as base. So base URL. So set the base URL. So base URL is equal to that, and then instance ID is equal to base URL plus /instance ID. Now, this is only getting the object. So it's getting the object call. We still need to read the object to be able to pull the actual instance ID. So we'll do that in a second. Let's go ahead and get the instance type as well. Instance type is equal to base URL plus instance type. Let me make sure I spelled instance right, because I have a bad habit of not spelling instance right. Okay, alright, cool. So I believe it's instance type, instance hyphen type, great. Okay, so now let's go ahead and make sure that they are both red. Oh, before even any of that, so I actually need to set this with URL lib2. So URL lib2 dot URL open. There we go. And same thing here, URL lib2 dot URL open. There we go. Now, if you ever want to test out any of this, you can with the standard Python that you find in any server. So if I can just go to Python and just type most of this and not all of it. So I'm just going to do import URL lib2. Okay, and oops. So from there on, I just need the base URL. I don't need to create a function. I'm just going to go ahead and use the base URL and set the variables and make sure that that all works. So there's my base URL. Here's my instance ID. And then as long as I can get the object value of the instance ID, I can call the read method within that particular object. So id.read. And there you go. There's my instance ID. Now, the read method is actually part of the URL lib2. So whenever you create an object with URL open, it returns that object with another object, and you can use the read method with that object, and that will return whatever it is that object is. So from there on, so let's go ahead and declare instance ID to the previous instance ID value dot read, and do the same thing for instance type is equal to the instance type dot read. So now that those values have been read, what we're going to do is that we're going to create grains cloud info, and we will append the first one with a dictionary value of provider, key is provider, and value is Amazon. So after we've created the first item in there, the first key in there, we're just going to go ahead and add on to that particular key. So we're going to add another key, and that's going to be instance ID, and then the actual value of the instance ID on the variable that we've already set. So grains cloud info. Since we've already used the append method, we're going to go ahead and call the first method, since that's what's been created with the append method. And then we will set the key as instance ID and put that value as the instance ID variable. And we'll do the same thing for the instance type. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention is that I'm not capitalizing the keys on any of the keys I'm providing to the grains. And there's a good reason why, is that if I were to capitalize these keys, then the keys would be moved all the way to the very top whenever I did grains.item. So in this list here, it would be all the way to the top. And that's not what I want. And two, you should always have a standard for your keys. So my standard is they're all lowercase. They're separated by underscores, and they're all lowercase. If you want to camel case them, you can, but I think when you have communication between you and your group of people who are going to be handling Salt, if you're gonna have capitalization like that, that's gonna be problematic. So I like to keep it all lowercase and separated by underscores, no hyphens in between, and everything. So that's my standardization. So with that said, what we're going to do now is that now that we've created the cloud info keys, cloud info grains, we're going to go ahead and return this and commit it and save it and make sure it runs. Now we may run into an issue because I haven't tested this, so I only know this basically off of memory. And you know what? On that thought, let's go ahead and test it. So let's go ahead and get rid of every blank line, and then just put this on the Python directory, on the Python IDLE. So then we just say print grains. So let's run ec2 check. See, it says global name base RUL is not defined. It's not base RUL, it's base URL. Where did I say? Oh, here we go. This is why I like to use the idle. Let's run that again. And there we go. That's exactly what we want. We want cloud info with one list and one large dictionary with instance ID, instance type, and provider Amazon. That's exactly what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and change that print into return, so it's actually read by salt grains. And I'm going to go ahead and separate this back out because I like to have my dictionaries and variables separate. And these are my instance methods, and so on. Let's go ahead and first instantiate. All right, cool. So now we need to do the if name is equal to the main, meaning that if this is the source, run the default method or function, which is ec2check at this point. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this as ec2. I'm going to name it ec2check because why not? So ec2check. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and commit this. So add commit ec2check custom grains and push. Oh wow. So let's go to, I believe this is my, let me double check. I believe this is my Saltmaster. I could be wrong. This is 31.166. Yep. Okay, so this is my Saltmaster. That's 1919 is my Saltmaster. Great. So become root. Go to SRV. Do get whole. All right, so it's got that. Great. So now salt util sync grains. All right, so if you see a response and it says the grain that you just created, that's a good thing. If you don't see any response, then it did not work. So we see a response, great. So let's go ahead and look at the grains of one of them because we know it's going to be in both if it's on one. So, oops. So web grains.items. Now we can do grains.get cloud info too, actually. I'll show you that in a second. But cloud info should be very near the top because it's an ABC order. Yep, there it is. See cloud info, instance ID, and there's my instance ID, instance type, provider Amazon. Okay, so now let's try it with grains get. Yeah, there's my one grain. Cloud info. Okay, great. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I hope this Python wasn't too bad. It should be fairly straightforward. But if you do have any questions about this Python, please let me know. And if you if you want to go ahead and if you want to study up on Python, I do recommend this link. If you want to pay for something to study Python, I recommend Team Treehouse. I've been using Team Treehouse for like years now. I studied all my Python in Flask. I even got into Ruby, and I'm starting to get into JavaScript as well. So yeah, so please comment on this. I know this is a little more advanced than what I'm used to providing on my SaltStack videos, and I'd like to know a little bit of feedback to know that this is too advanced, this is not good enough, that my editing quality is bad, no, I'm stupid, or whatever it is that you think that will provide me some sort of benefit to help make better videos in the future.